Kana was once known as Black Master Swordsman, but is now an infamous disgusting, bitchless pervert who has been declared a traitor in the magic world of wizards and monsters. In the past, Earth had become uninhabitable due to an invasion by giant bugs, forcing humanity to live amongst the clouds on floating island cities. Society in these magical islands is divided into the magical sky wizard community and the normals, who are just NPC weaklings. One day, the Magic Academy island of Misudogun was attacked by a swarm of the giant bugs, leading the academy to send its best sky wizard team to fend off the threat. Kana, the most powerful wizard, carried his useless teammates, Chloe, Yuri, and Lloyd, throughout the battle. Eventually, the giant bugs greatly outnumbered them, leading Kana to order his teammates to retreat, not wanting to be a part of this suicide mission. Chloe and Lloyd promptly abandoned him and fled the scene with an unconscious Yuri. Once he was alone, Kana single-handedly took down hundreds of the flying beetle monsters before he was confronted by a mammoth-sized bug. Hoping that he bought enough time for his teammates to return to safety, he put down his sword and faced the beast's ultimate attack. Months pass by and Kana is still around in the academy after miraculously surviving the attack. In the Wizard Academy, Riko, a dumb, delusional, narcissistic bitch who clearly has watched too many YouTube apology videos, proceeds to write that her pretty privileges gives her the full authority to not submit homework in time. Being in the lowest rank of the Wizard Academy, Riko believes that it is unfortunate that people think of her as a failure. On the other hand, Lechty is a Nepo kid with no personality who wants to fight for the common people who have lost their loved ones in the battle against armored insects. Ironically, she is ranked second lowest in the Wizard Academy, and the only thing that has kept her in the academy is her daddy's money. Whereas the third lowest rank holder, Miso, has never once won a single competition in any of her semester exams, and her grades are even lower than my parents' expectations of me. These useless bimbos are considered the weakest members in the history of the academy. Meanwhile, the head of the Wizard Academy plans to assign an instructor to set 3 of them straight. Hence, she chooses someone who is thought to be the most reliable person in the academy, Chloe, to find an instructor as loose as these hoes of Team E601. While Kana was returning back to his class after reading historical fanfiction all night, he ends up running into a red-haired chick, causing them both to fall down. Kana quickly grabs this opportunity to feel her flat plots, and as she jumps away from him, she notices her jam toast is stuck onto Kana's junk, which makes her angry, while the bread slowly falls off, making a scene that Kana is very familiar with. As he walks away to wash his soiled pants, he notices a strong and independent queen checking herself out in front of the classroom window. This delusional thought notices Kana, assuming that he is one of her stalkers, and warns him that he can't match her freak. Kana tells her not to worry as he is not interested in TikTok thoughts and walks away. While walking towards his class, he ends up taking a shortcut where he gets blocked by a blonde bimbo who tries to tell him what her pronouns are. But Kana can't give 2 shits at this point and completely ignores the bimbo. The moment he reaches his class, he gets called by Chloe, who claims that the head wizard has been looking for him. So Kana is forced to walk once again towards the headmaster's cabin, who calls him a worthless pimp for absolutely no reason and orders him to train 3 dumb hoes from the class E601. He claims that Kana's assignment is to make these dipshits capable enough to destroy the insect monsters. He was left with no choice but to accept this task as he starts walking back towards the class and introduces himself as their instructor. Miso questions Kana whether he is even a real instructor to begin with, or he is just scamming the 3 of them to get in their pants. Tired of all the false accusations, Kana talks about their low grades in every class and practical exams. Miso gets flustered and starts acting defensive to protect her pride as a team leader, but none of her team members seem to believe her. He continues to destroy Riko and Lechty, saying that even a retard could perform better than them in the exam. However, Miso argues back, saying that Kana is a traitor to this academy since he defeated the giant insects before but continues to live a cowardly life and can't even help his teammates reach the highest rank in the academy. Kana tells Miso to win at least 1 match before yapping about his failure, which makes the 3 of them realize that they really need to win in order to stay in the academy. Kana tells them that if they manage to defeat him in a match, they will be immediately known as the strongest girls in the entire academy. But this still doesn't convince Riko, and this delusional bitch continues to claim that she doesn't have to prove anything as she is already the best. Kana replies that everyone knows she is the best hoe, but they are talking about actual combat here. Riko is shocked that someone is mansplaining her and thus accepts Kana's challenge to participate in the exam. The next day during the training, Miso feels that Kana isn't taking them seriously as he is not using his entire magic powers to fight them. Kana tells Miso that that she is right, and he doesn't waste his energy on dumb bimbos, which infuriates her, and she starts chasing him recklessly without a plan, leaving her team members behind. Kana realizes that while Miso does have good speed, she lacks teamwork. During the chase, Miso lets out her long, huge weapon and aimlessly charges at Kana. Getting tired of her clownery, he ghosts her by using his magic, which makes him fly away from her. As he hides from Miso, who is losing her strength, Kana feels as if someone is hiding behind his back, and he is surprised that Lechty used her rotten brain to cleverly come up with a plan to trap him. Kana instructed her to charge at him, but she couldn't keep up with his stamina and slowly started losing focus. Kana encourages her to trust in her aim while she is charging towards him, but the air-headed bitch remains inconsistent throughout the fight. While Kana was occupied fighting Lechty, Riko aimed her gun-like weapon towards him to hit him with a bullet, but he noticed it and quickly pulled himself and Lechty away from it. Kana couldn't believe that these useless thoughts were capable enough to come up with a strategy in the middle of the fight, and they tell him that they always ditch Miso and let her wander away during the fight, which makes it easier for them to team up and fight their opponent. The next day, Kana informs 3 of them that they would begin their special training, and he wouldn't go easy on them. Riko refuses to join the training as the delusional queen thinks that she's too good for them. Kana doesn't give a flying fuck about Riko anymore and decides to let her go, and instead decides to train Miso and Lechty to satisfy his disgusting fantasies. Kana orders Lechty to wear a maid costume and gives her a bag full of flyers to hand over to the people outside. Lechty reluctantly stands outside while trying her best to distribute the flyers, but she is a pussy and cannot handle people staring at her. Meanwhile, a group of hopeless, horny, virgin guys notices her wearing the slutty maid outfit, and they try to grope her in public, but Lechty uses this opportunity to hand them the flyer for the cafe. At the same time, Kana plans to break Riko's ego by finding her weakness and asks Miso to help him, but she doesn't agree with him and argues that she couldn't break her teammates' trust. Suddenly, Kana grabs Miso as he notices Riko walk past them, and after he finishes groping her, he pushes her towards Riko and orders her to follow Riko. Reluctantly, Miso starts stalking Riko, but this dumb bitch can't even hide herself properly and ends up getting caught in a minute. Riko is flattered as she thinks that Miso has fallen for her and is therefore stalking her, and so she lets Miso do so. At the same time, Kana Loki starts bullying Lechty and orders her to become an actual waitress and start taking orders from the customers of the cafe they were in, and just like a spineless bimbo, Lechty starts taking people's orders. The shitty guys in the cafe start teasing Lechty, and she finally gives up and runs away from there, and as she leaves the cafe, she bumps into Miso and starts crying and starts telling her how traumatic her day was. Miso notices Lechty's slutty outfit and decides to join her in the cafe to seduce the customers as well. After a while, Lechty gets comfortable and is able to take people's orders without feeling shy, which surprises Miso as she always thought that Lechty is just a pussy with social anxiety. As their shift gets over, they visit Kana in the park to complain that he basically bullied them and didn't teach them anything. He replies that it's better for both of them to realize that they are just useless bimbos and they really need to work hard to improve their skills. Furthermore, Kana tells Lechty that she has a great potential and she could use her skills to a full extent if she stops being a spineless bitch and for once and trusts her instincts. Miso tells Kana that she couldn't find Riko's weakness and also adds that she is just a pretentious hoe who likes reading messed up philosophical stuff to manipulate people. Miso gets frustrated after she realizes that she is a selfish person who never bothered to understand her own teammates. The next morning, Kana tells Miso that she is so useless she should simply give up on using a magic sword and instead use a magic cannon during the fight. Miso couldn't handle Kana's orders anymore and she snaps at him and tells him to shove the magic cannon inside him and leaves the room. Miso just disappeared after she fought with Kana, leaving Lechty and Riko to do most of the training on their own. Lechty asks Riko to help her with the waitressing, but she straight up refuses to do mundane tasks, saying that hoes like her never serves people who are below her standards. Lechty gives up on this bitch and decides to ask Kana for help. Meanwhile, Kana stalks Miso so hard that he ends up reaching her home where he meets her dad and asks him to send Miso with him back to the academy. But Miso is still mad at him and refuses to go with Kana. The dad notices the tension between them and tells Kana that Miso gets her attitude from her dead mom. Kana notices the family picture hanging on the wall and realizes that Miso is as hot as the dead MILF in the picture. Kana asks her dad the reason for her obsession to use magic sword as a weapon, to which the dad replies that it is the last memory Miso has gotten of her dead mother, who was considered to be the great sky wizard many years ago, but now is forgotten as she never returned from her last battle. It turns out that in this world people who do not pursue magic are called as naturals. These naturals lose their memories with wizards once the wizards of this world are dead. Miso's father is unable to remember her mother, but Miso doesn't want to lose her memories, and that is why she chose to become a sky wizard just like her mother. Miso's dad doesn't want to lose her and asks Kana to protect her, to which Kana replies that he doesn't let his side chicks die so easily. Kana finally understands Miso's obsession to use the magic sword, and he promises her that he will train her so hard that she becomes his best side chick in the academy. Miso finally starts believing in Kana and rejoins the academy to continue her training with Lechty. The next morning, Kana decides to go on a lunch date with his boy bestie Lyod, where people recognize him, and decides to sit far away from him as he is the most toxic red flag in the academy. Meanwhile, Kana's main chick and his former teammate Yuri walks in and tells him that he and his students are dipshits and that they will lose in the upcoming match as usual. Kana agrees and tells her that the thoughts he is training are useless and no one would be interested in them anyway, but that would give them the upper hand to prove people wrong and become the famous team of the academy. At the same time, Miso and Lechty decide to have girl-on-girl action in the changing room, but Kana barges in requesting them for a three-way, but they reject him and tell him that they would rather die as a virgin and leave him alone in the changing room. After that, Miso and Lechty decide to convince Riko to join the training with them, as it is the only way they could become strong and defeat their opponent team in the upcoming match. Riko continues to be a stuck-up hoe and tells them that it is pointless to participate in a match where they would lose no matter what, desperate to become the strongest member and fulfill her dead mother's dream. Miso kneels down in front of Riko to plead her, but Kana notices this and snaps at Riko and tells her to believe in her teammates for once and stop acting like a useless tramp. The next morning, Kana begins his training with Miso, where he teaches her to gain control over her magic sword, and for that, he uses his magic power to summon his big, long sword, which originally was known as the Sword of Destruction. Kana gathers up his magic powers and applies it onto the sword to release a giant blast that shoots up all the way in the sky. Now he teaches Miso to do the same, and after few attempts, she successfully releases a huge blast from her sword, which makes her really happy, but she realizes that her magic powers decreases after the attack, to which Kana explains that this trick will use up a lot of her energy and hence she could only use it thrice during the match. Miso is worried whether she could really keep up with the training or not, but Kana assures her by telling her that she really is the best hoe he has ever been with. After flirting with Miso, Kana begins to train Lechty, but this bitch has a praise kink, and so she asks Kana to appreciate her skills so that she could perform better during the training. Kana replies that he doesn't care about dumb blondies like her, and she should simply focus on what he has taught her so far. Lechty charges towards Kana with her swords and lays multiple attacks on him, which makes it challenging for Kana to dodge. Even though Lechty wasn't able to take Kana down, he tells her that she has gotten more confident in handling her magic weapon, and she should practice more with him so that she could handle his sword in the future. Meanwhile, Riko uses her clairvoyance magic, which gives her the power to view anything from far apart, and she uses it to observe Kana and Lechty from the ground as she feels left out as Kana has stopped simping for her. But he suddenly appears behind her and catches Riko checking him out. Riko tells Kana that Miso's magic power isn't enough to win the competition, as that move takes up a lot of energy from her, which would make the team weak in the middle of the match. Kana is surprised to see Riko actually use her brain to come up with a strategy for her team, and he tells her that she could become the key strategist of the team and not just some delusional hoe for once. Further, Kana tells her that he desperately needs her to join the training because the team is incomplete without her, and he is dying to train her all night just like he does with Lechty and Miso. Riko is flattered to see Kana simping hard for her and finally agrees to join the training. On the day of the match, the city announces that they are under attack by a large army of beetles and everyone has to evacuate the city at once. The head of the Wizard Academy deploys a high-ranked team of the wizards to fight against them, while all the lower-ranked team, including Kana and his team members, were ordered to evacuate all the people out of the city. Meanwhile, the armored beetles were successful in breaking the city's barriers and started entering in large numbers, but they were all killed at once by Chloe, who is one of the higher-ranked wizards of the academy, but the beetles just kept on multiplying and got spread all across the city. Suddenly, Miso notices a group of beetles approaching her way, and she quickly summons her magic sword while concentrating all her magic powers onto the sword and releases a blast towards the group of beetles and kills them at once. Kana tells Miso that she could aim much better than that, but her technique has gotten much better than before. Meanwhile, the head of the academy gets an alarm that another species of beetle has entered the city's barrier, and she orders other high-ranked wizards to take them down. But despite killing the new species, the number of beetles doesn't stop adding up. It turns out that an unidentified species which is much more powerful than all the previous devil beetles has approached the city. Riko puts on her nerdy magic glasses to activate her powers so that she could detect unidentified beetles from far apart. She detects the location of the unidentified beetles and points it out to Kana, and then he orders the team to attack them all at once. Misao tells Kana that she doesn't want to die a virgin like him, because attacking those devil beetles with their skill level would definitely get them killed. Kana replies that he has trained them to kill devil beetles and not just win matches among other dipshit members of the academy. Kana and his team flies towards the devil beetles and Lechty charges towards them, killing all the beetles one by one with her magic sword, but their number kept on increasing. On the other hand, Riko uses her magic sniper to kill the army of other beetles from a distance. Misao flies towards Riko, summoning her magic power in her sword, releasing a huge blast to kill the beetles. Meanwhile, Lechty also joins them to help them kill the giant army, but suddenly, a huge blast is released which shocks all three of them. Kana saves Misao from the blast by dodging it with his arm. It turns out that the giant unidentified species of beetles was the one who created the blast, and it has started flying in the direction of Misao and Kana, and this forces Kana to release his full magic potential as he summons his black giant sword. The giant beetle throws multiple blasts towards Kana, but he dodges them swiftly while flying near to the devil beetle and cuts its head in one slash. The devil beetle keeps on blasting huge beam of energy towards Kana, but he dodges them with one blow from his sword, and finally Kana recharges his sword with magic energy and releases huge energy which eventually outpowers the beetle's blast, and thus killing the devil beetle in the end. Kana falls down from the sky and lands on the ground completely exhausted, but the thoughts keep on kissing his ass and fawning over him, and he tells them that they are the best hoes now, and he believes that they will undoubtedly win all the matches in the academy. On the day of the match, Kana meets his main chick Yuri, who asks him why he has stopped simping for her, to which he replies that he has got more side chicks to simp for and isn't interested in deranged like her. As the match continues, the referee gives its final judgment, where the team E601 seems to fail the match miserably. After the attack by the devil beetle, the Sky Wizard head calls the higher S-ranked wizards team to ask whether they were the one who killed them, but they told her that they were not present at that site when the beetle was killed. It turns out that Kana told the head that his team defeated the beetle, but she was not ready to believe that those three little d***ts could accomplish something like that. She further told the S-ranked team that she is thinking of disbanding Team E601 as they are just filled with dumb bimbos and a pervert instructor. Then the division lead also announces that the city of Misutagan will hold a tournament for all the wizards division except the higher S-ranked wizards. Meanwhile, Misao is infuriated that no one believes that their team was the one who killed the beetle, to which Kana replies that chances of his ex coming back together are much higher than people believing that these third-grade thoughts were the one who defeated the beetle. He added that if they really want to prove their power, they would have to win the Misutagan tournament and become the best team of the academy. Suddenly, Chloe summons Kana to the head of the wizard's room, where the head tells him that he is fired from his position as an instructor because all Kana did so far is assaulting his team members and creeping them out further. She added that his team members are the biggest retards of the history of the academy, and their presence is no more needed here. Kana replies that the team he has trained is so much more than just mere retards, and that the head should let them participate in the tournament so that she could see their progress. Meanwhile, Misao, Lechty, and Riko start eavesdropping on their conversation and assume that they are really going to get expelled from the academy, and they ask Kana what they can do to remain in the academy. Kana tells them to get serious about the tournament if they really want to become the best wizards and also prove that their skills are good enough to defeat the devil beetles. Later in the evening, the division head along with Lloyd, Chloe, and Yuri enters the lab where the scientists study the anatomy of the devil beetles. They meet the chief scientist, who at once recognizes the S-ranked wizards, where he notices Yuri and starts crushing hard for her. The head tells the wizards that after the battle with the unidentified beetle species, they found that these particular group are much larger than the previous beetles, and they also have regenerative powers, and this could cause a huge trouble in the future because defeating such beetles would need large and highly skilled wizards, and that is only possible if all the wizards in the academy come together to show their skills and thus get promoted to a higher rank, and that is why the Misutagan tournament is so important for the academy. The chief scientist follows them and asks Yuri if he is her type, but she tells him that she would rather die alone than be with a gaitard like him. The next morning, all the wizards gather for the matchmaking of their tournament, and the three dumb are happy that they have gotten paired with another lower-ranked team, as that would increase their chances of winning. Kana meets them at the event where Yuri joins him and tells them that her team is far superior than theirs and wouldn't last a minute in front of her team if they fight each other. The next morning, Lloyd, Chloe and Yuri talk about the recent incident where several wizards are being attacked by a disgusting stalker. Kana, who was eavesdropping on their conversation, asks whether it is something serious and has the stalker been identified yet. Yuri interrupts him by telling that he needs to stop acting like a pervert and should think of giving other people some space, and Kana replies that he doesn't simp for deranged thoughts like her anymore and she should just leave him alone. Later during the day, Kana meets with his team to change the strategy of their fight by changing their position of the attack and defense, and everyone seems to agree with him except for Miso, who is a stuck-up Karen that doesn't like change at all and thinks it is a dumb idea to come up with a new strategy at this moment. No one gives a flying f about Miso and shifts to the new position they have been assigned. Later on during the training, Riko analyzes the position of the beetles and instructs Miso to f off and target the ones that are far away from them, while she and Lechty proceeds to kill the army of beetles that are on their right target. After a while, Yuri brings her team members besides Kana and his team to show off their potential and asks him to give up already. As Kana's team watches them train, they are worried that they would never reach their level, and they would have to train a lot harder than before. Lloyd and Chloe meets with the head of the academy to report that there seems to be a pattern. The stalker has been assaulting the wizards, where he usually starts with lowest ranked wizard and then proceeds to attack other higher ranked wizards in the academy. He further adds that the stalker targets the wizards that carry a certain magic weapon only. Later in the night, a B-ranked wizard gets chased by the stalker, where he pushes him on to the side of the street and maniacally starts kicking the wizard till he becomes unconscious. The other morning, Lechty decides to wake up and jog so that she could look like a malnourished Victoria's Secret model, where she meets Kana, who jogs to stalk m***s in the area. Lechty asks him what is the point of changing their position when they are so close to the tournament. She also adds that her position during the fight makes her more useless, as she is used to attacking in close distance. Kana tells her not to act like a big brain and follow on his instincts for once, and he punishes her by making her wear the slutty maid outfit once again. The next day during the training, Miso and Riko start arguing as to who is the best hoe of the team right in the middle of the fight, and Lechty realizes that her position is the most crucial one, as she is responsible to observe and guide Miso and Riko so that they can attack the beetles and not each other, and they both perform really well in their new position, whereas Lechty, being at the end of the formation, kills all the beetles to cover Miso and Riko. Kana observes this and praises Lechty and tells him he has seen her improve each day and she has passed the test successfully. Kana asks 3 of them to stay in one room from now on, where 3 of them could also have girl-on-girl action all night and understand each other better than before. After leaving 3 of them arguing, Kana decides to meet Yuri to get some action himself. He asks Yuri whether he was the reason she stopped using her magic spear during the fight, and Yuri replies that she is only interested in Kana's spear and wants to use it every day. Kana was about to let Yuri touch his spear, but suddenly the disgusting stalker who assaults the wizards appears and tells Yuri that he missed her and she should play with his spear instead of Kana's. Yuri summons her magic sword and attacks the stalker at once, but the stalker moves so quickly that he is able to dodge every single one of her attacks. The stalker keeps on changing his position in a flash, but Yuri is able to dodge his attack from the back and makes his sword fly far away from him. The stalker is infuriated, and he uses flash wind magic that could cut even something as huge as a tree in pieces, and he targets this wind magic towards Yuri continuously until she starts bleeding. While the stalker was about to lay final blow to kill Yuri, Kana comes in between and stops his attack with his magic blade. The talker yet again tries to move at a godspeed towards Kana, but he stops him once again and calls him a pathetic loser who can't even keep the sword to himself. The stalker leaves both of them and runs away as he has lost too much blood by fighting them both. Kana carries Yuri to the dorm where his team members live and requests them to let her stay with them, where he explains that Yuri has no more energy to walk because he has been boinking her all day. Yuri wakes up after a while to notice that Kana has stripped her because he wants to boink her again, and she tells him to boink himself and leaves the room. The next morning, the team wakes up to make breakfast, where Miso is of no use because the bimbo only survives on bread and jam. Lechty and Riko ignore her existence just like your ex ignored yours and proceeds to make pasta. Miso realizes that she is a useless piece of shit and would only survive if she is around her teammates. As the Miss Utogan tournament begins, the team has started preparing strategies to use against their opponent. In the dorm, the three of them decide to do a three-way in the bathroom before the tournament begins, but Riko and Lechty tell Miso to f*** off, which makes her wonder what could she possibly do to win their trust. On the day of their match, the ground was pretty empty as people weren't interested to see a few useless tramps fight each other. Miso tells Kana that she should just give up at this point, but he replies that she should be a little more observant and think about what she could do to be a better team leader. The match begins and Miso charges at the opponent team without letting the other two know her plan. The opponent saw that coming and dodged her attack in a second, which caused Miso to fall down. Lechty and Riko continue to fight with the opposing team, which makes Miso realize that all she needs is to trust her team members so that they could cover her during the fight, as she is skilled in using long-range attacks which could destroy her opponent in a minute. She summons a huge amount of magic to her sword, which causes the opponent members to cover their leader, but the energy Miso creates is too large, and this blasts away all three of the members of the opposing team, and thus Team E601 wins this round of the match. The three of them celebrate their victory because it is the first time they didn't just around, but actually put efforts in winning the match. Everyone thought that it was just a fluke, as the bitches from Team E601 can't even defeat a boiled potato if it was lying down on their plate. It doesn't matter what the others think though, as this boost of confidence really helps them as they continue to blast their way forward into the tournament by destroying anyone who came in front of them. After defeating two more teams in the tournament, they end up reaching the semi-finals, which was really shocking to all the other teams. Everyone thinks that finally their luck will run out now, but to their utter disbelief, the Thoughts manage to pull through the semifinals as well by defeating a pretty high-ranked team with their stellar teamwork. Miso and Lechty celebrate while Riko tries to act all tough, but deep down even she herself is overjoyed at the fact that finally they managed to achieve something when no one expected them to. Meanwhile, Kana watches from the sidelines with a smile on his face, knowing that this was all just the trailer and the real match would be the finals against Yuri and her arrogant team. That evening, everyone leaves back for their dorms and Team E601 is all over the news. Many people are praising them for their stunning performance, while others calling it a fluke. But the main headline is Kana's promise that if their team loses the finals, E601 will disband forever. Later that night, Lechty walks through the hallways thinking about how she has changed, even though she never thought she could. She remembers the struggle days when Kana started teaching her the ways of combat and how difficult it was for her to understand and implement them. But thanks to his friends and Kana, she managed to pull through and is going to be a finalist in the tournament tomorrow. Riko is also restless as she paces in the garden, but remembers all the hard work she has put in to change herself for the better, which gives her a little confidence to face the finals tomorrow. Back in the locker room, Miso seems a little stressed, as well as she remembers how she has always wanted to give Kana the super ultimate sloppy top, but he never understood her signals. She wonders whether he likes her, but decides that this is not the time to let her inner come out as she needs to practice. Finally, the morning of the finals arrive, and the entire stadium is buzzing with people who are ready to watch the final showdown. Lechty gets a little overwhelmed, knowing that so many people are here to see them perform, while also noticing the huge cameras ready to catch any of their missteps. Riko, however, seems confident, claiming that she wants everyone to see her beauty in full flow. The audience doesn't think that way though, and they all seem to hate the fact that Kana's team managed to reach the finals. They accuse them of cheating and boo at their entrance, but their tone immediately changes when Yuri's team enters the battlefield. They immediately realize that Yuri is the crowd favorite by far, but there are still three friendly faces in the crowd who are supporting E601. Finally, the two teams get ready for a face-off, and while Yuri is totally concentrated, Kana is busy jacking off Lechty's hair for absolutely no reason. A little while later, both Yuri and Kana take their seats on the benches, and Yuri immediately tells Kana that he should leave if he wants to preserve his self-respect. But Kana fires back, claiming that Yuri is the one who needs to be scared, as if she loses, she will have to remain a slave of Kana forever. The battle finally starts and Yuri's team immediately jumps into action. They all disperse in different directions, and before Kana's team could even react, Lily starts shooting them like an average American. Miso is shocked to see their incredible speed and immediately jumps into the air, flying away as fast as possible to escape Lily, while the short-haired gremlin chases her all around the stadium. Lechty tries to help, but is immediately cornered by the purple-haired feminist Sasha, who takes out her giant sword, ready for a fight. Lechty decides to take the lead and starts with a barrage of sword strikes aimed at Sasha. But Sasha's sword is too big, and she shows Lecty that size definitely matters. Meanwhile, the femboy decides to help Sasha and shoots Lecty with his arrows. Lecty manages to deflect them, but to her surprise, the arrows were filled with explosives and create a smoke screen around her. Sasha takes advantage of this distraction and attacks her from behind, but Rico comes in clutch and shoots at Sasha, forcing her to back off, saving Lecty's life. On the other side of the battlefield, Miso is still running around the entire stadium while Lily chases after her with her guns. Rico decides to take inspiration from Miso's strategy and starts flying around the entire area. But the audience don't really like this strategy and start calling them giant vaginas. Miso doesn't really care what the others are saying though, as she knows that there is no way she could survive against Lily in a straight duel. Lily on the other hand is confused as well, because Miso's actions are way too unpredictable, which is making it hard for her to aim properly. Lily screams at her to stand and fight as running away won't help her win the battle. But Miso simply smiles, claiming that this is all a part of the plan. Lily gets shocked and immediately turns around to see Rico aiming her sniper at her like a filthy camper. Lily somehow manages to deflect the bullet, but Miso immediately attacks her with her sword. Lily, however, came prepared and immediately activated a sword from her gun. Miso barely managed to stop herself, but got injured in the process. Yuri screams at them from the sidelines, telling them that they just need one final push to defeat these low-life incels, while Kana sits there quietly analyzing the battle. Yuri seems pleased with herself since all three of the battles seems to be going their way while Miso keeps running away from Lily. Yuri tells Kana that she knows his plan is to turn around and fight at the right moment, but claims that she has trained her team accordingly. Kana simply stays quiet as Miso rises up in the sky at an incredible speed while Lily follows her. Finally, Miso turns around and starts charging her strongest attack. Lily, however, already anticipated it and decides to stop it before she can charge, but she quickly notices that Miso managed to put all three of them in the straight line, which can be devastating. She immediately screams at her teammates to watch out, and Miso takes advantage of this situation, immediately rushing towards Lily with her sword, who barely manages to save her life. This sneak attack, however, really pisses Lily off as she got tricked by a feint, so she takes out her sword and blasts off towards Miso, who immediately starts running away again. Lily chases Miso all over the stadium once again, after which Miso stops and faces off towards Lily as she has gotten all of her teammates in a straight line again. Lily immediately gets ready with her sword for another feint, but this time, Miso actually charges her gun and shoots at them. The blast hits all three of them square in the face and immediately finishes off the battle, while everyone in the stadium looks at them in awe, unable to believe that Team E601 actually managed to defeat the champions of their school. Before they could even celebrate though, a red alert is issued as the announcer shouts in the mic that the Phantom Killer has infiltrated the stadium and everyone needs to evacuate right now. This creates a massive stampede as everyone rushes out of the stadium, when a huge explosion occurs in one of the towers and a weird-looking man emerges out of it, flying slowly towards Kana and Yuri. He keeps taking Yuri's name, claiming that she only likes strong men, so he became much stronger than her. Yuri suddenly remembers the weird man named Nua who she met a couple of times in the science facility. This incel screams Yuri's name and rushes towards her, but Kana comes in between and lands a back kick which throws Nua into the benches. He immediately takes Yuri's hand and starts running away, but Nua catches up to them, forcing them apart. He again tries to go towards Yuri, but Kana grabs his arm and throws him away once again. He screams at Yuri to run away immediately while he deals with this deranged fuck. But Nua doesn't like being insulted like that and throws a bunch of chairs at Kana. He manages to dodge most of them, but gets stabbed by falling debris, which gives Nua the opportunity to block Yuri once again. She attacks him with a sword, but Nua shatters it easily. But before he could attack her, Miso shoots her magic blast once again, forcing Nua to the floor. Nua gets up and starts shouting like a mad dog before his body turns into a huge blue blob. The student safety officers arrive and realize that it's too late and Nua has already become a true monster. He uses his abilities to create a huge tornado, which captures Yuri and the others inside as he tries to move towards her again. Miso once again interferes, but this time Nua is not playing around and shoots back at them, forcing them down on the floor. This really pisses Kana off as he finally reveals his true abilities and starts moving towards Nua angrily. He takes out his ethereal sword and slashes Nua, who tries to block the attack, but still gets hurt. Nua realizes that he can't take Kana lightly, so he takes out his huge scythe and attacks Kana, who meets him with his own sword slash, creating a huge impact. Nua realizes that Kana is also affected by the same magical powers like him, but he has kept his in control, so he starts shit-talking him, which makes Kana angry, and he rushes towards Nua with his sword. They clash in the middle, and Kana immediately tries to shank him with another dagger, but Nua grabs his arm and forces the weapons away from him. Kana looks completely helpless at this point as Nua brings her sword close to his throat, but Kana still has confidence in his team. Lekti immediately slices off Nua's arms, saving Kana's life, while Riko shoots at Nua's other arm, freeing Yuri as well. The monster is shocked to see this, but he has no plans on letting Yuri go, so he creates a sharp whip from his arm and shoots it towards Yuri, just when she thought she was done for. Kana comes in clutch and takes the full hit on his own body. The monster laughs as Kana falls to the ground, but before he could finish our hero off, Miso and Riko start shooting at him. The monster decides to deal with them first, but the thoughts have learned a lot and manage to trick the monster, giving Lekti the chance to finish the battle off. But unfortunately, Nua's armor is too tough, and it breaks her swords off. He immediately backs off, while Nua unfolds his wings and tries to fly towards the girl and finish them off. It turns out that this was all a part of their plan, as the thoughts move aside to reveal Yuri behind them ready with her sacred spear. Nua doesn't take her seriously though and rushes towards her at full speed. Yuri doesn't flinch and stabs the spear deep into Nua's body, who at first laughs, thinking that this is just a normal spear. But soon his body starts disintegrating, and he falls to the ground in a cloud of dust. Yuri descends down and puts her spear at Nua's face, telling him to surrender, but Nua decides to finish Kana off before he dies. But Yuri anticipated this and throws her spear, which gets lodged deep into Nua's back, taking his life as he fails to reach Kana and disintegrates into nothingness. The day is saved as all the injured people are brought out of the stadium and taken to the hospital. The victory of Team E601 is all over the news, and a couple days later the prize is distributed. Kana takes his team back into a classroom and explains that unfortunately the prize, which was a super cool weapon, ended up getting destroyed by one of the blasts, which really bums them out. But at the same time, he reveals that they are getting a new addition to their team, which turns out to be Yuri herself. She introduces herself when Kana grabs the box from asking what's inside. Yuri tells him that it's for him and he should open it alone. But Kana is a massive cunt and disregards her. She tries to stop him, but he opens the box anyways, only to find a cake with the words "I love you" written on them. He finally realizes Yuri's actual feelings, while she runs away embarrassed, and soon everything goes back to normal. The girls of Team E601 are given much more respect now, and with the addition of Yuri in their team, they start training once again, ready to win the next tournament as well.